All right, let's now look at our social work practice. Excuse my attention, please. We will be looking at our social work practice, specifically emphasizing on three elements within social work practice. These will be the planning, the assessment, and the intervention. And if you remember so well, these things were covered when we were looking at casework 1. And as I mentioned earlier on, casework 1 is about what social work is all about, the methods, processes, what are the procedures, and things like those. Now, in this subject matter, we are going to go deeper into what it entails. From practice, how do you move? Where do you go into by dealing with these issues around here? So we'll be revisiting the planning, the assessment, and the intervention. These are the three areas that we're going to be looking at. And also, given that type of arrangement, if you recall from your previous lessons, when we are looking at our cyclic approach to casework, right? Twambi knows very well what it is. And here we talked about the administrative process of just the intake process as administrative. You move to diagnosis, which is an assessment, planning, intervention, whatever it is, and so forth and so forth. Now, that was just to demonstrate how casework can be approached. And we looked at the processes, the procedures, and things like those. Now, this time around, we'll be going deeper to understand what planning is all about in social work practice, right? What interventions are supposed to be in social work practice? What assessments are supposed to be in social work practice? And also, how the types of models that you can use, both in your planning, in your assessment, and in your intervention. So we'll be looking at all those things. Now, critical to this will be what we call the case management. So we shall be looking at case management, what it is and what it entails, and what effects does it have on actual planning, assessment, and intervention of cases within the context of social work practice. And also, we shall delve into small aspects of casework and also social work as a practice, issues of interviewing. I know we mentioned an interview as a tool through which you get information from your service user, right? But you have to look at all those different types of interviews and how do you go about it? How do you design an interview and an interview instrument to get information specific for you to use? We shall also look at the intervention in a much deeper sense to be able to understand it, and also issues of supervision. Social work practice is about supervision. Twambi, why do you think it is important? Why should supervision be important? Given the context of this, our understanding of the cyclic approach to casework. Anybody? Why do you think it is important? Amira? Why is it important? Why would supervision be important? Well, so supervision will help in decision making. On what? On the issues that they are dealing with. So to help you in decision making on the issues that you are dealing with. Okay, that's fine. I'll give you some benefit out of that doubt. Yes, Amira, you said what? Also, you get to know what the groups are talking about through supervision. We're just checking what the people have already done. All right, we will look at that. But don't forget that in social work practice, you are dealing with what we call cases, right? And every case must come to an end. And how do you conclude your case? There must be a follow-up process, which assures you that you have done away with that case and you can discharge it get out of it as something like that. So supervision will be very important. And here we shall see, at what point do you commence your supervision? You remember, last time we talked about planning, and we're talking about supervision. And last time we talked about monitoring, you remember, and we talked about evaluation. This cycle here gives you those things around. At some point here, Chisomo, you need to evaluate your work, right? And it is at that point where it will be necessary for you to make some decision on what you are going to do with that particular case. Unless otherwise, you want that case to go on and on and on and something like that. But in terms of social work practice, there will be at one point or the other to discharge that case. So you want to tell me that a case can only be discharged when you are satisfied that the desired outcome has been achieved? A case can be discharged at any one point along this cycle here, depending on the nature of that case and also the circumstances around that case. And we used a term last time. Okay. So it's telling us of another term that we use, a referral. A referral is an official transfer of a matter or a case that you are dealing with to another organization to continue working on that particular case. Because, one, you have no expertise. Two, that case is outside your jurisdiction. Three, your organization may not have the resources adequate to meet the needs of your particular service user. So you can refer that case to another organization so that that organization should be able to deal with that case and something like that. So we'll be going through all these things, and fortunately, or unfortunately, must be fortunately, we also look at communication. Why do you think communication has to be revisited over and over again in social work? It is what?
Communication is the only way where an agent has to get information from the through communication, you are able to know.
What we should be saying here is that social work without communication is not social work at all.
Yes.
Social work is about interactive relationship between you as a service provider and the service user that you are dealing with, right? And there's no way you can communicate with your service user without communication. Now this takes you back to what is communication, Victoria. You can't run away from this. What is communication? Okay. What is communication? You did communication. Yes. No, answer the question. What is communication? Whether it's verbal or not verbal, that's not an issue. I want your definition. Is the communication connotes transfer of message or information from one end to the other, so that the other end that is receiving that information or that message should be able to decipher, to get a meaning from what you have said, right? That's the communication. Then you come to types of communication, whatever it is, right? Verbal, non-verbal, whatever it is, something like that, yes. So you find that as we move on to look at our planning, assessment, and intervention, communication becomes key, right? Communication will become key. You cannot intervene in any situation if you cannot communicate. You are not going to assess if you cannot communicate. And you are not going to assess if you cannot intervene, right? And you cannot intervene if you cannot design a case management for that particular. And you cannot do all these things here without planning. You cannot do your assessment without a plan. You cannot intervene without a plan. You cannot assess without an interview as a form of communication, as a tool of, that you are going to use to get information from your service user. And so too, how you do your intervention. So it will be quite interesting because we are going to go a little deeper into looking at some of the models here that we are going to use. You get out into the field. What else do you need? The fact that some small piece of communication would be what? After all these things, everything is done here. What do you need? Very small, simple thing. What do you need, madam? You have done all your work, you have planned, you have assessed, you have intervened, and you have discharged your case. What else do you need? What else do you need? What would you need to have as part of communication within the social work practice?
Once you are done with everything.
Everything. And also, as you go on these working your case or your service user through these processes here, what do you need? There are certain
Once you have
things that
done all of it.
once you have done it or you are doing it, what do you need? In the end, huh? That's so this one we mentioned because it is also a tool that keeps and tracks your work, right? It is able to, you can look back at it, it will inform you. Your boss will look back at it, your boss will be able to measure your level of effort, whether you know your work or not, whether you're following procedures or not, because you have left something to show for your indulgence into that particular work. So far, so good. This is what we'll be looking at when we look at planning, assessment, and intervention. I know previously I've had a lot of problems where students have said, but we did this, right? Yes, I don't want you to fall into that trap. Yes, we did this, yes, we did that. But it is not like that. It is purposefully put here so that we put emphasis on the generalized approach to social work practice. You look at theory and practice. It was very general, right? Now we're trying, in your second year, we build your technical skill, your technical know-how. This is why you have casework 1. It's about building on your theory and practice, right? Casework 1 will build on your theory and practice. Casework 2 brings you the techniques. How do you deal with a problem when you get it? And how you deal with that problem that you get will borrow from the theories that you did in your theory and practice, right? That's why you have done casework 2. Now, planning, assessment, intervention, right, pulls or takes a leaf from your practice parts in the theory and practice, social work practice. But now in detail. So don't fall in that trap where you say, no, Tinapanga, that's not true. You can say, we did casework 1, I can't do casework 2, you are missing it. Casework 1 is about your theory, right? What you do in year 1. Casework 2 is about casework 1, yes, it's about the theories that you did. Casework 2 is about the practical parts that you did, right? By bringing the theories, interpret those theories into action, and what do you do? That's why I have all those things coming around. Now, within this planning again, we shall also look at issues of policy specific, right? And registration. Policy and registration. How do these inform your planning? Understand that? How does policy and registration inform your assessment and your intervention? Right? So we shall roughly go through what policies are available, what legislation is available, and how do they inform your planning assessment in practice. Right? That's why here we say social work practice planning. Don't say social work practice and theory, whatever it is. Because deliberately put that way to put emphasis on these 3 elements here. So we'll be getting down into those and see how the best we can get down to that. Simple example. If Chisomo, you find a child in the streets crying, 5-year-old, and tells you a story that he was with a mother in town, but the mother jumped into a minibus, forgetting the child. That's the story, right? The mother has no phone, and the mother actually doesn't know that he forgot the child. because the mother is busy eating chimanga, roasted maize. Right? By the time he discovers that, oh, mwana palipi, they are already in Kamwendo. But mwana is here in Lilongwe. And this child has been found by a passerby because the child is crying. This child is taken to police, and the police know the procedures, right? They take the child to social welfare. Last time we mentioned about this series, the referral issue. Remember the collaborative?
Yeah.
Okay. So the child comes to social welfare. What would you do? The police officers will say, the lost and found child brought to our office by a well-wisher. Here you are, and they go. What would you do as a social worker? These are things that we are going to be looking into critically by dissecting, right, the situation of that particular child, and also look at the situation of that particular child and follow these elements here. How we are going to intervene, how we are going to assess and whatever it is. What do you think will be the first problem that we are going to face? Just an example, because of time, we just to wind up, to freshen up your brains. What would you do? Where do you start from? A child brought by the police in your office, lost but found or lost and found, 5-year-old, mother deserted. How do you deal with that situation?
She or he, food first. Kids love.
Will the child have told you that he is angry, is hungry, or is missing the mother? The child is just crying.
Yeah, like
so crying can mean anything.
Yes. One, they are seeing new faces. Yeah, they feel like these are not our parents.
Yeah.
They feel like but they can just start crying. They don't see the faces they know. Or two, they are hungry.
Yeah. Okay.
All three.
So the question is, sounds very simple. It's very simple exercise. But how would you use this to get down to the bottom of the problem? How do you do it? How does that help you?
If that will help me, I might get a clue. Somebody might be looking, we don't know.
All right.
Just asking around.
Maybe we will know where they're going.
No, any one of you can talk around, say whatever you want to say. But the question is, where do you start? You start from where the problem is. The child has been brought to you. We assume that you have received information enough from the police, right? About the child's particulars and the predicament of that particular child. It's an assumption. But in most cases, they'll just say, Mwana utampeza, basi tapita. It means it is your issue. You must deal with that issue. Now, how do you interview a 5-year-old child? Yeah? Okay, so when we talk about intervention, planning, and assessment, you find that it will be much more hands-on than the type of planning assessment you did in your casework 1. We're trying to marry your casework 2 and this. Right. How do you do interview? How do you get down to the bottom of the problem, and how do you help that particular individual? What techniques do you use? So the casework 2 is going to feed into what you are going to do in this particular subject matter that we'll be dealing with here. So this is going to be quite interesting. So you find that all that you do, work done and unrecorded or unreported is work not done. That's true. Is that true? Work done and that work is unreported or unrecorded, is work not done. Right? Assignment written and not submitted is an assignment not written.
It's not work done.
Yeah, it's not work done. So if I give you an assignment, you write and you don't send to me you have not written. That's what it means. Yeah. So any case that you deal with in social work, you must have a systematic record on that particular case, because that case is not your case, is your organization's case, right? You cannot be there permanently. Somebody will come in and somebody is going to take over, and can only take over because there's a record, and that record can direct that individual on what next steps to take by way of intervention and also the assistance that they may require. So far so good. Just wanted to introduce this subject matter, and we will be continuing when we meet next week. Meanwhile, we'll just go and discuss with the dean if you can just organize the timetable. That's what we can do. Then I'll communicate after that. I'll communicate to your captain there. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah? No, we're not through. Let's now look at